We are going to be covering so much Scientology news today, including a situation where Scientologists kidnap somebody. Hello and welcome, everybody. I'm Natalie, and this is Scientology Life After a Cult. Thank you, everybody who is here in the live chat. Always great to see you. Big mahalo to the members. I so appreciate your support, and a huge heartfelt thank you to the moderators for helping us keep the wheels on the bus around here. On the bus. Little Freudian slip there. No, the bus. All right, let's get into it because we got all kinds of stuff to get into, including, like I was saying, a kidnapping by Scientologist and so much more today. Let's see here. Let's jump into first. If you don't already know, Aaron, growing up in Scientology, just did a video with an update on the Jane Doe Masterson case. I'm going to show you just a little clip. Link down below. Go watch the whole thing.
The Aaron is right here. Welcome back, everyone, for some more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. Scientology appeals a ruling in the case. This lawsuit currently has 5 causes of action and 5 plaintiffs. The first cause of action is stalking. The second is physical invasion of privacy. The third is constructive invasion of privacy. The fourth is intentional infliction of emotional distress. The fifth is loss of consortium. Now, Scientology.
Now, you guys, there is a reason, like the details of this case is just kind of mind-bending. So go over, check out the whole video because he lays it out. The video just dropped. There's a lot of great information in there for you guys all to check out. Happy birthday to you, Wooly. 55 years young today. That's fantastic. All right. And welcome everybody coming over and room rating from Growing Up in Scientology. Thank you, Aaron. And thank you everybody for getting in here. And as per usual, as you enter the room, please slide over to that like button and give it a little aloha tap. A little aloha tap, maybe even a wink. And hit that subscribe button. Okay, now let's jump over to, I have so been enjoying Jenna Miscavige's content. She's been doing some lifestyle things, and she did a video yesterday that, if I'm being honest, I felt a little attacked. Because I totally related. She did a video about basically adulting and eating like an adult. And it might sound like a small thing to many of you here, and maybe not. So tell me in the chat if you're on the replay. I want to hear from you in those comments. It is a real thing for some of us growing up in Scientology, or in Jenna's case, growing up in the Sea Org and then being in the Sea Org as a young adult. You know, we ate cafeteria style. And the food was just always provided and put there, and you eat during very specific meal times. Well, what happens after that when you leave that environment and you're getting into life? I guess I relate to this because I struggle with cooking. It is not something I enjoy. I am a huge fan of eating good food, but I just, for whatever reason, it is just not my bag. It's not something that brings me joy. And I've been wanting to find a way, because let's be real, I cannot live off burritos, breakfast burritos. Now, granted, even though, you know, they are organic and burritos at dinner is not like a well-rounded way of eating. So I've been super excited that Jenna's been doing this content because it started to inspire me to actually maybe cook something. Like maybe I could actually do this. Happy Healing Train. Great point. I love Jenna's videos. I'm healing from childhood trauma, raised in a restaurant. Ooh, interesting. I struggle with cooking and nurturing myself. Ooh, I think you just hit a nail on the head there. You know what? I think that's a big part of what it is. It's the nurturing ourselves piece that I know I can speak for myself that I have struggled with over the years, and I'm getting better at. And I feel like with this added content, you know, Jenna is answering questions when people send her questions. She's still doing that, but doing this more lifestyle content really is putting that emphasis and bringing it to the forefront. I know for me that I do need to nurture myself. I love how you put that. Love how you put that. Happy Healing Train. That was great. Okay, let's take a look at this clip.
I think my favorite scents are lemon. It just like makes you feel energetic and awake. And my other 2 favorites are honeysuckle. This is one of the best smells ever. Actually, when I was growing up at the ranch, we had honeysuckle plants all over. And I think it's nostalgic for me.
And those that aren't familiar with Jenna's story, get over to Jenna Miscavige here on YouTube and check it out, or get her book, Beyond Belief, which I read years ago, but I'm listening to it again on Audible. In fact, my recent road trip, I drove to Kansas City to go do some protesting out there and drove back. And I got through, I think, over half of it. And so much of it is her childhood at the ranch. And it's written, of course, from her perspective as a child and what that was like growing up, and what she found to be what her normal was very different from, I mean, pretty much you had to be there. It's that kind of a thing. So definitely recommend the book. Check it out. I'm loving the content. I hope she keeps doing it, because maybe there's hope for me to get inspired enough to do a little bit of cooking. I don't know. I really want to, because burritos are getting old. And, I thought about the meal kit. Thank you for the suggestion. Natalie's Body Thetan made that suggestion as well. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't found one that I absolutely love. I tried a couple. I don't know. Okay, enough of that. Enough of that. Let's move on now before I get too distracted by food, because of course I don't eat breakfast and I'm hungry. So let's go over to the blue buildings, to L. Ron Hubbard Way, to Confident Chris, because guess what? Anybody who's been following the protest for some time, you might remember Charlie-tology, as he's being called. Do you guys remember Charlie-tology, who was out there? He's a Hispanic man that Chris befriended, and some of the other live streamers. And unfortunately, Charlie was assaulted, and there was a fundraiser to help him get back on his feet, and he did. And Chris ran into him, and I love a good reunion. I just love a good reunion. Look at this.
No way. Ain't no way.
Te lo juro. Te lo juro.
What's up,
Te lo
man?
juro.
Man, te miras más flaco. What's happening?
Estoy delgado. Ya estoy engordando un poquito.
Estoy live, Están viendo.
Just great to see Charlie there. He looks like he lost a little bit of weight, but he's looking good. I just got such a kick out of it because, like I said, we have not seen Charlie-tology in quite some time, right, Joe? We've not seen him. It's been a while. It's been a hot minute. And I have been thinking about him at times. Like, I wonder what happened to Charlie-tology. And boom, there he is. Yep, Mena, he is looking well. Yes. Oh, and Vanessa's saying, as an ex-Sea Org, I can definitely relate. Cooking is not my bag. I'm so glad I'm not the only one. I mean, I've done it. I had to raise my children and put some type of food on the table. Eventually, my children learned to cook and did it better than I did, to be honest. They still do, actually. Okay, now let's jump over quick. And for a hot minute, let's just talk about Tom Cruise's sad reality that could soften SURI's heart. Have you seen the headlines? This is a new headline. And I'm like, ooh, this is a stretch, people. This is such a stretch from Tom Cruise's camp. Tom Cruise's sad reality that could soften daughter SURI's heart. Okay, first of all, I'm like, what would justify a father not being a part of their child's life when there's really no reason that they can, other than the fact that you're in a cult that tells you got to practice disconnection when people leave Scientology or dare to speak out against it or ask you questions about it. So I don't know. I just feel like it's not going to be an easy fix. Well, let's see what the plan is here. An insider shared with In Touch that Cruise is almost entirely consumed by his work, constantly engaged in new projects, even when he's supposed to be taking time off. This relentless work ethic has isolated him, as few can match his energy or dedication. What in the world? Was this written by David Miscavige's people? Oh, he's just so busy. He's so dedicated. He has such an incredible work ethic that people can't keep up. And that's why he has no friends, except for his best friend, David Miscavige, who's the leader of Scientology, which is a human trafficking cult. Let's not forget about that. Slave labor, which, again, Tom Cruise has benefited from. So I'm not buying this. Are you guys buying it? Tell me. You guys tell me. Is it because he just works so much that he's not seeing SURI and she just needs to cut him some slack? I don't think that's going to happen. Goes on to talk about how his life is largely solitary, with his closest companions being powerful industry figures rather than personal friends. His world revolves around his next big stunt or movie idea, leaving little time for anything else. Let's be real here. Tom lives for the business of being a global movie star, and it's not exactly work for him because he goes like a 24/7 lifestyle choice. He goes at it like a 24/7 lifestyle choice. He literally has no friends who can keep pace with him, and that's all been exacerbated this summer as he finally puts Mission Impossible 8 to bed and can move on to other projects. What in the world? And then again, he only socializes with the moguls and other A-listers to further his movie ambitions. And it's pretty clear when you spend any stretch of time with him, he's a lonely guy and would rather be off shooting a mega stunt than pretending he likes downtime. Okay. I just got to call complete shenanigans and BS on this. I'm sorry. No. Tom Cruise, you don't live a solitary life because your work ethic is so incredible and nobody can keep pace. I mean, good for you on having a good work ethic. No. That is not why. It's because you are 100% deep into Scientology with David Miscavige and share a lot of the kind of not just crazy beliefs, but harmful ways of putting people to work, of, having them do all kinds of things for you without them getting paid. This idea that people should just work for free because it's flowing power to power. So let me explain to you guys a little bit of a Scientology behind the scenes. There is a Scientology belief, a doctrine, L. Ron Hubbard said, that you flow power to power. And what is Tom Cruise? A source of power in Scientology. So Scientologists, the SEA organization, would then need to flow power to him by working for free on his airplane hangar and cars and things like that, as has happened over the years and has been exposed by Sea Org members who left the Sea Org and turned whistleblower, and they're like, ooh, guess what? Here's the real truth about Tom Cruise. It just has more to do with that. I get the whole thing, how, I love my work. I consider myself sometimes to be obsessed with my work because you guys know there's not much outside of my family that makes me happy as exposing Scientology and shining a light on it, truly, honestly. But I still have a life outside of that. I have my family, I have friends, I do things sometimes. I do. I'm getting better at it because I'm trying to practice the self-care, trying to find out what that looks like. And again, that's why Jenna's helping me with the inspiration to just make things, even a simple thing like having flowers. They're these little things, but they do make a difference. Asen, I love your comment. What a sob story. My kids have no contact with their father. And no, they don't feel sad for him, nor will Suri. That girl barely knows Tom. And being a parent doesn't mean you get away with SHIT. You're so right. You're right. That is correct. Anna says he has to keep making buku money so he can keep his dinner plate award. That's right, because Scientology, his best friend, David Miscavige, gave him that giant medal that's like a dinner plate that he wears around his neck. You're right. He has a lot to keep up on. Am I being too harsh on him? Maybe. No, I'm not. It's ridiculous. Fish Mom 2011. Tom Cruise, it's called priorities. What you want is what you make time for and put effort into. Exactly. At the end of the day, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. That doesn't mean that our priorities align with everybody else's. We have to decide and prioritize how we're going to spend that 24 hours. What are the things that we need to get to? What are the things that we need to make a priority and make important? We all have the same 24 hours in a day, Tom Cruise. I don't know why you think you're so busy and important. And okay, here's the thing too. I enjoy movies and shows and all that, but going and making these movies is not exactly like you're saving lives. You know what I'm saying? Or doing things that like firemen, people in the police department, teachers, all of those people, what they do to help and save individuals, lifeguards, all of these people are out doing that work. And yeah, I'm sorry, Tom Cruise, but making your movies, though they can be enjoyable. I'm not a fan of his as a human being, but I have enjoyed some of his movies. But yeah, shenanigans. And sounds like you guys too are like, no, we are not buying this one bit. We are not. Failed pessimist. Love when Aaron and Natalie pronounce French words. I know, right? Isn't it kind of funny that we both kind of like, Doesn't stop me though. I'm still going to try. All right, let's now move on. Let's take a little look at, I don't know if you guys heard this, but Leah Remini put out a tweet let's look at it here, where she's talking about YASHIR Ali, who has written multiple stories. He's done a lot to expose Scientology, and he just got the URL, ShellyMiscavige.com. It's one that he had been trying to get for a while, it sounds like, but he just was able to secure it. And it says YASHIR Ali has been the victim of relentless retaliatory campaigns launched against him by Scientology, and in some cases by people and organizations who aren't directly tied to Scientology, but are operating at the behest of David Miscavige. That he continues to report on the crimes of Scientology, I am forever grateful. It is because of reporters like YASHIR. Is it YASHIR or YASHIR? YASHIR. Looks like YASHIR. And Tony Ortega that Shelly's story continues to get attention. And because of YASHIR, different audiences are being exposed to what is happening in Scientology and what is being done by Scientology and David Miscavige to anyone who has been declared an enemy. I am constantly being shut down when trying to find out information about my friend Shelly's welfare from local, state, and federal agencies. But I'm also always asked this question: what's new in the Shelly Miscavige case? I'm asked this because these agencies imply they can't take an interest because there is no new information. And that's the point. The fact that we've learned nothing new in 20 years should be enough. If it was your mother, your sister, your friend, your aunt, and you hadn't heard a word from them and you hadn't been seen in public, would you be asking, what's new? And then this is the tweet from YASHIR. Folks, I have some news to share. It took me over 2 years, but I'm now the owner of ShellyMiscavige.com. I don't know what his plans are for that, but I'm sure it's going to be something. And you know what? We'll be keeping an eye on it. All right, now let's go over to an article where, we talk a lot about the inappropriateness of children and Scientology auditing. Auditing in Scientology is their form of what they call counseling, and it is not. But basically, you can be asked very inappropriate questions. And in Scientology, children are big beings in little bodies. So there's nothing really known as being age appropriate. So the same auditing an adult would get with interrogations or questions having to do with certain sexual behaviors, the child would be asked the same thing if they're doing that same level, that same step on the bridge to total freedom. Yes. So that's, you guys know the deal, but for anybody who is new to the channel, just so you know, that's kind of pretty much what happens and why there's so much pushback from this community and all of you when it comes to children being audited in Scientology. Then you flip the script and there's children who can be auditing adults, where then you hear, when I was 15 years old and I was training in Los Angeles, part of my job, I've shared this story with you guys before, I was trained and then had to actually handle grown men on their self-pleasuring habits that they were not supposed to be doing while we were on this training program, or why they were getting Scientology auditing. I was 15 years old. It was gross. I thought it was gross, but as a good Scientologist, I thought, you know what, Natalie, you just need to get your training routines in. You just need to get up your confront. My desire to not do that, my being uncomfortable and grossed out by it, was pushed aside by the Scientology indoctrination and training I had been doing since I was a young child of 8, 9 years old. And that is what happens. So let's take a look at this, because Scientology is back during their celebrity magazine again. So that was part of the news. But the thing that really interested me about this was this part. What we're talking about is a classic testimonial that appears in the latest issue. And perhaps inadvertently, it confirms what so many former Scientologists have been saying for so long. The Church of Scientology preys on children and turns them into zealots before they're out of middle school. Take a look at what we mean. So this is a young lady gaining knowledge, getting trained, going OT, a new breed of teenager. Going OT, that's operating Thetan. That's the higher levels in Scientology where you start finding out about, Xenu and the body Thetans and all that good stuff. So let's see here. Ananya, let's call her Ananya, started her journey to freedom as a young girl at Flag. Now a singer-songwriter, she As she keeps moving up the bridge, she keeps winning. And this is her story. The day after my 8th birthday, my dad brought me to the New York org for the very first time. I remember being shown the bridge to total freedom. I doubt she says it like that, but I do. And I was drawn to the steps of the OT levels. Remember, operating thetan levels. That's where you audit off your body thetans and you learn about Xenu. Later, we moved to Clearwater and I quickly settled into my routine. School all day, dinner at the Fort Harrison, and the Fort Harrison is the Fort Harrison Hotel, which is there in Clearwater, then into the Golden Age of Knowledge course room. I stuck to this routine every single day until, by the age of 12, I had completed all of the basic books and lectures. I next embarked on the adventure of training, and by the age of 13, I was a flag-trained Class 4 auditor. Everybody, this means she was auditing adults. That's what that means, okay? Then I decided it was time to work on the processing side of the bridge. I completed the expanded grades in new aerodynamics and I went clear. So we know that means she figured out that she was creating her own reactive mind and she wasn't going to do it anymore. Forget that it was Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard who said, hey, y'all have these reactive minds. But once you pay me $100,000 and you do all this work, you're going to find out, nah, psych, you were making it up the whole time. I lied. He doesn't admit to the lying part though. Let's see. So she goes up the bridge. At this point, I felt like I was finally free from something that had held me back for trillions of years. Trillions of years. People, it was probably just like some teenage angst. You know what I'm saying? She was a teenager. Objectively, everything was fine. However, I lived with a constant knot of dread in my stomach. Life had gotten too serious. I knew it was high time to begin the OT levels. Girl, I just cannot with this. So during her first session on the OT level, she says, I unloaded tremendous amounts of charge, and charge is like you're upset. I learned so many things about myself and why certain things were the way they were. When she finally did the whole Xenu thing, she says, I understood the real reason for the constant feeling that nothing was right. On this level, the pieces of the puzzle finally started to snap into place as I understood the reason for my overwhelm. Girl, you're overwhelmed because you're a teenager. You're growing up. It's part of it. That knot in your stomach, that's probably anxiety from all of the pressure that you're under. It's a knot from anxiety, pressure that you're under as a young Scientologist, as a child, trying to do all of this training. It is not easy. It's actually quite an accomplishment to get that far at flag in training because the training program is so intense and strict. And remember, she's a child when she started. At 8. And by 13, she'd done this. By 12, she'd done this. And then she did the operating thetan levels. Her family must have money because I'm just like, where are you able to pay for that? What she should be doing is going to prom, girl. You should be going to prom. You should be figuring out, dating, spending time with your peers outside of Scientology. People your own age or thereabouts, spending all your time. All of your free time for years being indoctrinated by Scientology doesn't leave any room for you to figure out who you are. They're taking this exactly what happened. I didn't do all the training she did, but my indoctrination in Scientology started at about 8 or 9 years old. And for years, you become trained to accept that if you don't accept anything L. Ron Hubbard says is truth, there is something wrong with you. So yeah, that girl, I'm just waiting for her to leave. Waiting for her to leave. I hope that it happens. Okay, now let's go over to, did you guys catch the interview on Julian Dorey? Is it Doran? Julian Dorey. Julian Dorey did a podcast episode with Aaron Smith-Levin, and it was a great interview. It was hard to listen to at times, only because as an ex-Scientologist and ex-Sea Org member, just some of it can be triggering, but it's necessary to say, it's necessary to talk about it. Let's look at a little clip.
When you finish a course or an auditing action, you're not allowed to finish it until you write up a success story on how great it was and how it changed your life and how you would want other people to have that. Now, if you're like, I'm not really feeling it. You're like, oh, you're not? We're going to have to go back and see what's wrong with your last level. And that costs you more money.
Hop on the lobotomy machine, my friend.
The beatings will continue until morale improves. But you get to a point where it literally costs you more money to
Oh,
say that that thing didn't give you exactly what you hoped it would. So you're trained to lie to yourself
that's crazy.
just to save money. When you finish a
That is so true. We've talked about that before. That's the thing. Every time you finish, you have to go write a success story. Back in my day, gather around for back in my day. Back in my day, we used the carbon copy, so you could make a copy of your success story. You had to write through it. So it made another copy and you would turn it in. Great interview, Aaron. Oh my gosh. So, and it's so true. It's like you get really good at it, just trying to find something, and sometimes there were certain things that, especially the early stages in Scientology, the basic beginning courses, there are a few things there that people could find helpful. Why? Because they're natural truths that you could find elsewhere and still would have found it helpful. The things that L. Ron Hubbard actually codified and came up with when it comes to auditing, and especially the upper levels, is just not really in the grand scale of things helping anybody except Scientology to make money. You basically spend your entire time on the Scientology bridge to bankruptcy, basically going to bankruptcy, basically headed that way. You just have to, they tell you when you have a disagreement or your life isn't going well, it's because you need your next step. You need your next fix, Scientology. That is totally how they treat it. Okay, now, New Haven. You guys, Scientology has been forced to pay property taxes. I know you're like, Natalie, wait a minute. They're a nonprofit. What do you mean? How could this be? How could this be true? They're a nonprofit. They don't have to pay real estate taxes, property taxes. Well, they do, and they did on this specific property in New Haven. Because what they did is they bought this building 1 million years ago. Not exactly. I think maybe it was 20 or 17. We'll take a look at the article. But they didn't do anything with it. They let this building sit there, decrepit, just falling apart, doing nothing, paying no taxes on the property. Where New Haven was like, you know what? No with you. No. We're not doing this. Y'all need to pay money. You need to show us the money. Show us the money, Scientology. And guess what? Scientology had to show them the money. Yes, they did. Take a look at this. This is from the New Haven Independent. So the Church of Scientology has paid local taxes for the first time in 14 years for a vacant former furniture store in Westville Village and is now looking to demolish part of that neglected property as part of a long-delayed renovation. According to the city's tax bill website, the state branch of the Church of Scientology paid the city $39,871.18 on July 24th for real estate taxes it owed on this building at 949 Whaley Avenue. Now, that's just the first half of the church's local tax bill for the 2-story former Halleck's building. The next half, also worth $39,000 and change, is due January 1st. So as the Independent reported earlier this summer, this marks the first time since July 1st, 2010, that the city of New Haven has sent the church a property tax bill for 949 Whaley. The church bought that property for $1.5 million in 2003 and has never followed through on plans to convert it into a place of worship. It's not a place of worship. We all know that. So there's more info on here, like about the building, how it was a 1930s Masonic temple, right? The original wood grain stair in the 1930 Masonic temple is to be repaired and restored. So then Scientology is like, no, we're going to do something. So they came up with this thing called a demolition package. I think that's what this is. Portion of this building proposed to be demolished. So you know what? It's a drop in the bucket for them. Not for New Haven, because locally that org, they ain't got nothing. They do not have any money. So that basically means that, that this guy, David Miscavige, had to pony up. So let us awaken the Office of Special Affairs. Hey, Osa, how you doing? Okay, so this is so funny because like the whole tax exempt status thing that we would like you to lose so you can stop ripping people off and hurting people. is not going to apply if you don't fix these buildings. You got Scientologists to pay all this money for this building and it's sat there neglected with nothing. How does that help anyone? Now you got to pay all these property taxes. But you know what? This is a good thing for the community. In fact, I would say that Scientology paying these property taxes is probably the biggest contribution they will ever make to that community. You heard it here, folks. You heard it here. So yeah, maybe Office of Special Affairs, you should do a press release about that. Once you do a press release about how you're giving basically almost $80,000 to that community, maybe they can do something with it, fix the roads. They will do much more than you will do if and when that building ever opens. So we're just saying, we're not buying it. And I just think that, I'm glad they paid the money. Where else is this happening? I don't know, but everybody keep an eye out, keep your ears out, because Scientology has bought many buildings all over the world. And they are not here in the United States anyways, and state by state it might vary, but maybe there's another one sitting there in disrepair, falling apart, they're not doing anything with, and somebody should alert the tax man. Depending on what the rules are in your state, it might vary. Okay, now, let's go over and talk about, it's been a hot minute since we've talked about Rebecca Minkoff. Rebecca Minkoff is a Scientologist. She's going to be on The Real Housewives of New York, which airs, I do believe, October 1st. And I'm all set up for it. I make sure I got Bravo so I can watch and we can talk about it. She comes from a multi-generational Scientology family who has given millions of dollars to Scientology. She is also a handbag and fashion designer with her own brand and has had that for years. She's built it up with her brother, who, word on the street, is an OSA spy. So he's one of yours, Office of Special Affairs. Come get him. So let's look at this. This is a clip from an interview from another cast member on The Real Housewives of New York. She was caught on a hot mic not long ago saying that Rebecca Minkoff is too boring for the show. She's really nice, but she's just too boring. And of course she is, because if she's doing the Scientology trained thing, she has to not react. So can you imagine, this is why I just got to see this crap show when it happens. Can you imagine being a Scientologist and you're trained just not to react? You get your Xenu eyes on. And then you're filming this show and people are talking all kinds of crap about you and you can't get into the back and forth banter like the ladies do. Because let's be honest, the Real Housewives franchise is all about drama. You have to bring the drama. That's why we watch. Let's be honest. That's why we watch. I think a lot of us, myself included, likes to watch rich people fight and argue and be petty. That's it. That's all this thing is about. And if she's not doing that, right, she's just not going to bring it. She's not going to last. But there's all this drama around her because of Scientology and because of her father, Dr. David Minkoff, and his role in the death of Lisa McPherson and also Whitney Mills, which was just a couple of years ago. So this other cast member was like, she's boring. She's just like not going to bring it. Well, she goes back on this podcast and then tries to backpedal a little bit where they talk about this incident. And I just thought it was funny. Let's take a look.
We have learned how to block out
you
the
and I
press.
talked about that.
Like for my sanity, I had no idea. It was actually Rebecca who texted me. I had no idea that it had even gotten out. It was
so she's saying, right, she didn't know that this information got out, that she was still on the mic, it got out. And I love that it was Rebecca who sent her a clip. Listen to how Rebecca responds.
Rebecca.
Because Rebecca's the person you talk shit about.
I didn't talk shit about her.
She's
I said
nice.
The girl was nice. And she is a nice person.
She said she's very nice, but very boring.
And so she texted me and then she only sent me the clip and then question mark. And I was like, what? I watched it and I go, I literally had no idea. I said, what? You are very nice.
Yes.
And like double down on it.
I honestly think it's a compliment. If you say that, someone is really, really nice and, I don't know if they can, basically stand up to these bitches. I think it's a compliment.
It can be looked at as a pushover a little bit too, I think, though. Maybe that's what it is.
It's how you look at it.
I like her. I've known Rebecca for a while. We both lived in Dumbo together for a little bit. And she really is a sweet person.
Yeah, but so let's see how that all turns out. But she makes a good point. You got to bring the drama, Rebecca. Now is the time. In fact, Rebecca Minkoff, you should be out there bringing up Scientology yourself on the show. That would be fantastic. Corn Freaks pointing out that Battle Creek is the same as New Haven. So you guys might have heard Battle Creek Scientology, same as New Haven. Thank you, Corn, for that. Joe says, don't believe her. Oh, Tian Jenny, good point. I stand behind the fact that there's a difference between nice and kind. I agree with that. Agree with that completely. Okay, now let's go over to Denmark. Scientology up north has even more news of another news story in Denmark where the local elected officials are taking action against Scientology. Oh, this is so exciting. In fact, I'm going to have Scientology up north here on the channel. We are going to do a live stream probably on Saturday. So when you subscribe, make sure that notification bell is set to all, and hopefully you get a notification. But check this out, you guys. This is incredible. She translates this whole article. We're just going to look at a clip, but I linked it down below so you can see the whole thing.
After a series of articles in Berlingske about conditions in Scientology which are described as modern slavery, a broad majority in Christiansborg, and that is the Danish parliament, will now intervene. It is completely unacceptable, is the reaction. In Denmark, children have signed contracts to work for 1 billion years after they have worked far more than most adults every single week. It is clear after Scientology defector Cyril Chiquet has told his story to Berlingske. It is a story about how, as a mere 16-year-old, he signed a contract for 1 billion years with Scientology's elite unit, the Sea Organization in Copenhagen.
So again, she translates the whole article in this video, link down below. Make sure after this you go and you check it out. It is amazing. And in Denmark, we've seen Scientology up north. We've seen Bianca's gone out there and protested the SP chef, L. Ron Hub cult, and others as well. So this is definitely something you want to know about. Definitely something you want to know about. Okay, let's see. Where are we at here? You guys, this next story that we're going to go over, I'm going to need a cleansing deep breath before we start because it is ridiculous. Okay, this is the story about when Scientologists kidnapped 2 people, and this happened in Tennessee. We're going to take a look at a news clip. We're going to look at some articles, and we're going to take a look at who the main Scientologist is and where he might be today. Now, I don't know about today. I did find his blog. We are going to look at it. But first, I want to share some information with you from L. Ron Hubbard himself, which is going to explain what these people were trying to do. And spoiler alert, this will infuriate you. But before we sign off, we'll end on a good note. So we will get through this emotional roller coaster together. So just stay with me. Stay with me. Okay, so in Scientology, there are things there. You get labeled what's called a potential trouble source. It means you're connected to somebody who is antagonistic to Scientology, not in agreement with what you are doing. But there is a potential trouble source type 3. And that potential trouble source type 3 means you've had a psychotic break. You've had a break with reality. Basically, you have some serious mental health issues that should be being addressed by doctors and real people to help. But L. Ron Hubbard was like, nah, y'all, no, I got a plan for that. So when y'all lose your minds because of Black Dianetics and all this stuff, I have a way to take care of you. This is what was done to Lisa McPherson. This is what was done to Whitney Meals in Clearwater. So, and it's all based on this L. Ron Hubbard reference, what he says to do. And I'm going to read you just a part of this. This is like a couple of pages, but we're just going to look at a key part of this. Let's see. Oh, and also any needed follow-up handling is done, such as fitness board, and a fitness board is kicking you out of the Sea Org. RPF assignment, that's a rehabilitation project force, the gulag in the Sea Org, they say no longer exists, but it does. It's just been rebranded as something else. Releases and waivers, etc. So part of the handling when you have a Scientologist who has had a huge break with reality is to make sure they sign releases and waivers, right? We know about this. We've heard about this in other court cases. The person assigned to watch the type 3, now the type 3 would be the Scientologist going through this mental struggle or psychotic break, as it's called, referred to in Scientology. You have a person who has to watch that person. And he basically says the persons assigned to watch the type 3 must not be out ethic staff or staff with other fish to fry, like staff who might want to go bowling or have a life or spend time with their family. No, none of those slackers. You can't use them. Or under justice handling. In other words, nobody who is not in good standing with Scientology. And they have to have a good confront of evil. Such staff simply have to be used for these cycles, and even though they will have to come off the posts they are holding to handle this sit, and sit is situation, this needs to be handled so that they can do it. So basically, it's like you are putting the person in a room, because it says like putting weak out ethic staff members onto this. In other words, the people who are watching the type 3 or staff with a low confront of evil. So remember, this is a key point here. I really want to make sure you guys get. L. Ron Hubbard is basically saying that if you struggle with severe mental illness, that it's evil. That as a Scientologist who deals with this, you're going to be dealing with evil. And you need to have a confront of evil. So right away, he's like setting the mindset of you're not really having compassion. You're not having this person get the help they need. They're evil. They're having this mental break. So let's see. This does not happen when alert, inethic staff who are briefed are assigned to these cases. Oh, okay. Let's back it up a little bit. So when you have a staff member who's out ethics or doesn't have a high confront of evil, L. Ron Hubbard said having them watch the type 3 person, that doing this has resulted in the type 3s hurting such staff to the point of hospitalization, or the type 3 running up to strangers, creating further flaps situations, type 3s hurting themselves to the point of having to be hospitalized, and much more. So right here, L. Ron Hubbard is admitting that in dealing, when Scientologists have tried to deal with people who have major breaks with reality, or type 3 as Scientology calls it, that it has resulted in injuries that have resulted in hospitalization of the Scientologist trying to enforce that. So this kind of gives you an idea about that. There's basically, you put the person in, the equivalent of a padded room. Like was done, with Lisa McPherson, they kept her in at the Fort Harrison. So this is what L. Ron Hubbard says to do. So now let's take a look at what happened. This is a news clip we're going to watch, and this happened in 2017.
Update to a story you saw first on Fox 17. A Cannon County Scientologist who opened a rehab facility is now out of business for good.
A judge ordered the facility shut down after 2 people staying there reported being locked in cabins against their will. Fox 17's Erica Lathan has reaction now from Cannon County.
Well, an attorney for one of the men involved in this case wants to make it clear the facility in question had no affiliation to the Church of Scientology.
Okay, that is a complete and utter lie. And let me fill you in on this. You're going to hear it here, and you're going to see it in another article that these guys are saying, oh, no, we got nothing to do with Scientology. This is what they're told to do by Scientology. And if you don't, you will be in severe ethics trouble. You have to distance yourself. You have to protect Scientology over anything else. And now you've gone out there and you've messed up as a Scientologist. Now Scientology is going to distance themselves, and you need to distance yourself as well. My hunch, my guess, my suspicion, my opinion is that Scientology went to this Scientologist and was like, hey, back it up. You need to distance yourself from us. We didn't know about this. We had nothing to do with this. Here's the deal. Okay, so let's finish watching this.
But one of the people allegedly held there had a very different story. Hans Lytle, Dennis Flamone, and Mark Vallier pled guilty to false imprisonment of 2 people at a rehab facility in rural Cannon County. Lytle's attorney says he'd only worked there a few months and wants to set the record straight.
The facility that Mr. Lytle was employed by was not owned by the Church of Scientology, was not affiliated with the Church of Scientology.
Scientologist Mark Vallier, who is not affiliated with the Church of Scientology, is believed to have used his training to open his own facility. According to sheriff's deputies, they found a man and disabled woman locked in cabins with poor conditions where they claim to have been held up to 14 hours a day. Local residents are shocked.
That's crazy that it happened so close to home. You know, you wouldn't think about all this stuff that happens out in the crazy world happening right here where you're from.
Pretty crazy. I mean, normally this kind of stuff doesn't happen around here, so it's kind of new to me, though.
A victim told officers he'd been beaten and held there to, quote, have rehab and get cleansed through Scientology, end quote. Vallier declined an on-camera interview, and a judge has ordered the facility shut down for good. All three of the men charged in this case did enter conditional guilty pleas, and they'll remain on unsupervised probation for the next year.
So here's the thing. As you guys know, like I just said, they're going to have you distance yourself from Scientology. Oh, he's a Scientologist, and he was trained by Scientology to do this drug rehab. The other woman was somebody who was being watched, and that thing I just read you by L. Ron Hubbard, somebody who is PTS, potential trouble source type 3, that was her situation in the eyes of Scientology. And she too was completely mistreated and abused under the guise of, oh, we're doing the Scientology handling here. And because they got busted for it and they got charged, they immediately had to distance themselves from Scientology and claim, despite the fact that I'm a Scientologist and I was trained to do this by Scientology and open this Narcanon or whatever it was based on Scientology, based on the works of L. Ron Hubbard, it has nothing to do with Scientology. Y'all look crazy. Do you see how sick it is and how the mind control is so intense in Scientology that you will throw yourself under the bus to protect Scientology? Of course, they're just going to plead guilty. There have been numerous court cases involving Scientologists, some of them very high up the bridge to total freedom, who did the same thing. I won't mention them now because I want to get into them later and I don't want to get too sidetracked. So you guys are tracking with me so far on what happened here, right? This is just crazy. So then it comes out, of course, this guy, they can't distance themselves from Scientology. Here's the mug shot. And this story kind of reiterates what was happening. There were, a bunch of cabins and a double wide trailer. Anybody? OSA, Office of Special Affairs. I have to wake you up myself because your dear leader took a ride. Double wide trailers. Where have we heard that before? International Scientology Management, double wide trailers, where leader David Miscavige was accused of multiple stories. There's been books on it. Mike Rinder's book, Jeffrey Hawkins' book, multiple books. Mark Headley's book, Blown for Good, have all blown the whistle on this, that David Miscavige kept people in a double wide trailer, Sea Org members, and literally tortured them mentally and physically and deprived them of food and sleep as a form of punishment. So I'm like, ooh, we got the double wides again here. Okay, so the facility also housed another female victim who made the same claims. Deputies say they found a mentally handicapped woman had also been imprisoned in a padlocked room for up to 14 hours a day with no living standards. According to the arrest records, 3 men were charged in the case. Dennis Flamin, Hans Lytle are the 2 men who deputies say exercised control as caretakers over the victims. Flamin over the male, Lytle over the female. Both men were arrested and ultimately pleaded guilty on 2 counts of false imprisonment. However, the charges didn't stop with them. Mark Valeris. It looks like Valeris to me, so I'm going to say that. She said something different in the story. The manager of the facility. He was also charged with 2 felony counts of facilitation to kidnapping. So he was the manager of this Life Center for a New Tomorrow. This was the name of, his little Scientology friend group. Completely, it was a Scientology friend group. And this is what it was called. And this is what he did there. And they got busted for it. They are not alone in this. There's been multiple cases and situations of this happening. But right now we are talking about this specific situation, this specific case. Let's see. There's more articles about them. I have them linked down below. And it kind of, in fact, Business Insider even did some coverage about it and gets a bit more into the living conditions. Let's see here. This is from Business Insider. Scientology facilities have been closed after a man alleged he was held against his will. But we know there were 2 people there being held against their will. What officers described the man's bedroom as a small room with a single bed on it. They said the bed was bare except for one sheet that he covers up with, and that his bathroom is the only room with a light. That's kind of just a strange place to keep somebody who's trying to come off of drugs. The man and woman whom officers found while searching the facilities were taken to a hospital. The suspects were charged. The Canning County Sheriff's Department and the Church of Scientology did not immediately respond to Business Insider's requests for comments. Okay, so you might be wondering, well, what happened to the Mark guy? What happened to the main guy who was a Scientologist, right? Who was trained in Scientology on how to do this, how to use L. Ron Hubbard's technology. So let's take a look at this guy, because this dude had a website here. He was active at least up until 2022 on it, and very much a Scientologist. My life, my story, get to know me. This is the story of my life. I hope what you read here might inspire you and help you to have a better life. Click on my life, then choose the category that appeals to you. This is the guy. I have lived a good life. I have done many, seen much, helped a lot. Happiness came from having done, not from owning. Happiness came from having helped, having changed someone's life. I just, might be kind of harsh. Well, you know what? This guy's a piece of crap, because we know what he did. We just went over what he did, but he still went on to position himself as somebody who could help, people using Scientology. So if you go onto My Life, he's got this blog. He talks about how someone reached out saying that they saved this person's life. They were near a psychotic break and they saved it. It's so gross. You just go on. He was pretty active. I mean, like every couple of weeks, he would put out a blog post touting Scientology, simple answer to drug questions. That is the logo for the Foundation for a Drug-Free World, which is a Scientology front group, which is the group he would have been licensed. This is where the BS comes in too. If you are out there using L. Ron Hubbard's technology and you are a Scientologist in good standing, you have to pay a fee for it. It is pay to play. It is. If you were collecting money to deliver L. Ron Hubbard technology, you have to pay a fee. So this whole, he wasn't connected to Scientology thing is just, whatever. Mock translation. He's broke, but a happy Scientologist. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. Robert says somebody should help him with that hair. Okay. So like I was saying, it just goes on. You can go in. He does a tribute to his wife, how to get promoted fast in a job. I worked as a machinist, 13 years old, working till 3 a.m. part 2. Ooh, let's look at that. So this is when he worked as a busboy. Okay, that's not very interesting. But you kind of see the point here. Despite the fact that in 2017, he and these guys literally kidnapped 2 people, held them with only a light in a bathroom for the one dude and this other mentally handicapped woman. In what world? In what world? This is the world of what Scientology will look like if Scientology is allowed to expand. If they are allowed to get their foothold into schools with all of these kids going back to school right now, elementary, middle school, high school, especially college. Because the Foundation for a Drug-Free World, that's their drug-free pamphlets and all that. They get those into schools. They try to save point law enforcement and get them to use their booklets. And some schools will. Why? Because they lack funding to provide some of these materials, legitimate materials. And if nothing else, Scientologists are really, 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 really good at going out and presenting themselves as the authority on something, because that's what they were trained to do. That's what L. Ron Hubbard said to do. Now, the good news is Scientology recruitment is just not happening. With the number of people live streaming and protesting Scientology and things like what is happening in Denmark, with all of the articles that have been coming out about Scientology, exposing it, exposing children in the sea, or showing how elected officials in Denmark are now going to do something about it. That is just going to continue to spread, which is why it's so important to continue to get these stories out, to continue to elevate these voices, to get the word out and raise awareness as we're doing. And I appreciate all of you here that are here doing that. I truly, truly, truly do. And like I said, Scientology Up North will be on the channel here probably on Saturday. We're working out the timing because, it's quite a big time difference. Quite a big time difference. Let's see here. I'm going to grab a couple questions. Let's see. Fluffer, there's a policy called busy hands that you know of, or is there? Oh gosh, what was it? It was the equivalent of idle hands, like do the devil's work, something like that. But it was like busy hands make for a happy life. That's kind of what I'm recalling, but there is a version of that in Scientology, of course. That's why you always need to be producing so you don't turn into a little criminal. You always have to be working for Scientology to keep you on the straight and narrow, even if you're doing dirty work for Scientology. Office of Special Affairs, I'm talking to you. But if you're ready to leave and you want to leave, come on out. You know this girl will help you. I got you. Okay, let's see. SP Crusader saying Tom Cruise needs a reality and responsibility check. That is so true. His what he values or what he would appear to value just seems really kind of out in alignment with maybe how the rest of us might feel about it when it comes to family. Let's see. Oh my gosh, you guys have a lot of comments about the whole Tom Cruise thing. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Some of you guys are just funny. Okay, so, Desert Dog, yes, idle hands are the devil's workshop. Yeah, it's called something else in Scientology, but pretty much means the same thing. Pretty much. We have a version of that as well. Let's see. Okay, I think I got everything covered here in the clips. That's right, Selfless. Something is rotten in Denmark, and our friends up north are cleaning it up. That is for sure, completely. Do you think Scientology will go away? No, I don't think they're ever going to go away. Will they be forced to, I think even if Scientology got shut down, there'd be some form of it that would still remain, but it wouldn't have the teeth that it has today. You know what I'm saying? It would not. So they will never willingly go away. They won't, especially people in the Sea Org. They won't. They're very trained and dedicated to withstand a lot, let me tell you. And so they have to be, it's going to have to be shut down. It's going to, the more people learn about it, the biggest way, I think there's a couple ways of going at it, like what's happening now with protests and live streaming outside Scientology, because it raises awareness that it's a cult and people will stay away. And they can't be out there recruiting right out front. And really, even at some festivals and things they go to, because people show up, they show up for that. And also right now we have the whole campaign we're trying to do with SPTV.SPACE. Go to resources and find your elected official. Email them. There's a sample letter on there that you can send, finding out, wanting to know from them, where do you stand on a hearing, looking into Scientology's tax exempt status, and what do here's some information about Scientology. Here are some links to, some like really quick tidbits, things that they can see, information. And when you get a response on SPTV.SPACE, it gives you an email of where to send that to so they can be tracked. So if everybody can do this, and I'll remind you of it every couple of days, it would be absolutely fantastic, because that's another way that we can chip away. It's going to take time. When we talk about wanting to remove Scientology's tax exempt status, it's going to take time. But here's the thing. It's been done before. It's been done before. And time will march on whether we are or are not trying to end Scientology. So we might as well spend that time trying to end Scientology, at least for me, because I love it. It brings me joy to speak out and to push back on a cult where I spent 35 years of my life with 3 generations of my family. So I have a lot to say about it. That 35 years was a long time. And I appreciate all of you that keeps showing up. What happens if they don't have members? Well, then they just dry up even quicker. There will be diehard Scientologists to the end, like, Tom Cruise. If Tom Cruise left Scientology and was vocal about it, let me tell you, a lot of people would leave Scientology. A lot. They would for sure. Okay, everybody, on your way out today, please hit that like button and subscribe and set your notification bell to all. I don't even know what today is. I've already forgotten. What am I doing today? Am I back today? I believe I will be doing another video hopefully at some point. So that's where you hopefully get a notification. In the meantime, everybody, thank you so much for being here each day and showing up. I truly appreciate having you here with me. And I hope that you all get out today and have an amazing cult-free day.